Daily trading recap for Friday the 7th of January 2022. No real trades for me on the day, and then no paper trades for me either. Not really anything kicking my gears, kicking my fancy. I want to invent a new phrase there that we had today. SPY showing a little bit of a red day after that harder pullback 2 days ago that was. So still in this little pullback range after that all-time high attempt. Maybe we trend a little bit closer to 460 the next few days here. Is just still kind of meander, find its way still under 470 before it has any attempt higher. But again, that'll be interesting to watch. Just as a reference overall, let's check here. Behind the scenes look, let's check the market internals on the day for dollar volume. Let's do, okay, it's back. Dollar volume, we are 18 minutes after the close here. NASDAQ, $220 billion volume showing nicely $290 billion volume, sub $300 billion volume on a Friday. Interesting to see. OTC's $2.2 billion volume on the day. Yeah, like I mentioned, no real trades for me or anything that I was eyeing hard coming into today, especially off of yesterday. I knew I wanted to come in more focused on the paper side and just eliminate, once again, that attachment to money and just, okay, hey, we had some, I know I'm not a terrible trader. I just didn't want to continue to put myself down a road that I knew I would not want to be on 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks down the road that I could eventually lead myself down to, which is where I felt I got myself middle of November, that having that realization of, gosh, I'm just not looking at the right charts or not looking at the right trades. I need to be doing something different. That's when I really started that hard paper trading aspect harder. So yeah, kind of yesterday, just cutting off that little habit or bad ideas, bad executions off at the head, and just refocusing, getting that clean perspective again of what is really happening in front of us. We had December jobs report coming out at 8:30. Initial spike off of that, but then pulled back before pre, and then kind of Willy Wonka W and selling off a little bit more, coming back down to 465 after that missed reports. And then also as well for these tickers that I was watching, I had a few overnight little paper trades, just little ones on MRIN and EAR as well. IMMX still had a little bit of short on that one. But even on those, today was a great little example or practice day of using a wider scale chart of a 5-minute chart, a 10-minute chart that I was using, and even like physically standing a little bit further back from the screen to just encapsulate all of what was going on and understand the time frame and perspective that I wanted to be trading these things, and not just so focused on the tick by tick basis of what was going on. And majority of the times end up scaring myself out for what I thought the price action was doing or what I thought the bid and support was showing at that point, and then covering out a short or exiting out of a long there, and sometimes end up screwing myself over for what could be the longer term intraday trend, or if I'm, especially for these overnight holds or longer 2-3 day period holds of a trade, I got to be trading that time frame and can't get just so manipulated by what ends up being the little minutia details that can sweep up a lot of little scalpy traders, because that's a totally different type of trading mentality than what the trade itself that I put on is. So great practice run of that today. That's really all I had. We did dollar volume. Let's go into just talk about ABSI. This is really the biggest mover in pre. Just did not have, I was able to get the level 2 time and sales recording of this one today to just get to the nice fading action that we saw, again similar to FRLN yesterday. Just really, you could see or point out a lot of different little areas of, okay, it's bottoming here, here's the little dip and rip attempt, and just fake outs all along the way of how many times you could take those little paper cuts. But again, I didn't, the mentality that I had with FRLN was, oh, hey, the sentiment is that it's just continued to die. It's obviously a risky play. There's risk always there in every trade and anything we do that, hey, this could go against me. This could start to peel back to VWAP and have maybe a little bit of play after that. But even that FRLN trade that I took short of, hey, just follow the sentiment. And I didn't take that today for whatever reason. I think I was just kind of continuing to keep the broad perspective rather than just trying to force everything that was there. Maybe wasn't so motivated because I hadn't taken just a huge loss like I did yesterday in order to force another trade. But that was the same sentiment on ABSI today that FRLN had yesterday, of just the entire morning session. You call it little tiny fake outs, but really almost a pretty easy sit as a short if you aren't watching that tick by tick minute basis and just kind of screwing yourself over with the little mind games that you can play of bottoms that are being put in and trying to pick perfect little exit points. Just sit and relax and understand that the overall sentiment for this one is going to be death. This was Just for fundamentals, 42 million float, American synthetic biology company. Their news catalyst today was research collaboration with Merck. They're going to get like $610 million, pretty insane for that collaboration. But that was, really all I did. No plays on it, no good reference to learn from. Again, and another good chart to add to that market sentiment for these types of movers of kind of comparing that FRLN and ABSI for a somewhere, somehow, some why. These things are just dying off. So being able to play it to those extents is obviously a profit opportunity, a playbook trade that I want to be a part of and understand why these happen that way. MRIN, I mentioned a little bit in the introduction. Man, this was, especially I mentioned it yesterday in the closing outro of, gosh, this is that playbook pattern. The pre-market especially was what I was looking for. And yeah, market hours got a little bit squirrely, and it was also a good note to see, not necessarily a good note that I'm proud of it, but just a kind of comforting note too to see Jack Schwartz, number 7 in the chat, also trying to short this thing, and he cut pretty much his short at the exact top here, 955 range of. He was just saying there's way too much volume. It was too big of a volume candle. It was going against him too much, so he was cutting there, and that ended up being the perfect top. So good. Yeah, not like I'm spiking the football, like happy that he just did so poorly on that, but a reassurance to say like, hey, everybody, even some of the greats, make mistakes and cut at the top if they're short. So yeah, just kind of a good reassurance that way too. Everybody is human. We are not robots here. Yeah, but regardless, I did get short after the little video that we had yesterday as it was playing off of VWAP here. It did a little squirrely thing, but pretty much perfectly. This is the type of trade that I need to be, how I need to be handling this type of trade if I want to be trading it. Because I would normally just say, okay, great, this is going to be a good one to watch for market session tomorrow, and I would not touch it at all because I would normally pop up on the scanner as after hours was closed and end up like not seeing any of these, or see it like after trading hours when you couldn't put an order in, and then be saying, okay, well, I'll wait till pre-market then tomorrow and then just play for the longer fade, when that's a very lower probability than the actual probability of this thing continuing that little downtrending slope that I want to see off of that kind of lack of volume pre-market, because all the volume and all the excitement off of that initial news catalyst was immediately after the close on that previous trading day. So then it just becomes, it can do these types of things where you get to market hours and, okay, we found a little dip and rib bottom here. We're spiking back above VWAP and doing its little crazy thing. But I feel the majority of the time in the charts I've collected on these is the sentiment is you're playing a pretty nice bet. And I forget the last one. I should have pulled it up on what I was trying to force a trade there. NTRB is coming to mind. Something that started with an N, of where this thing is already dumped, and similar to MRIN, that it's already dumped so far all the way to 4.2, and then trying to establish a short position from there. That totally led in today with the journal notes I took on this one. Even though it was paper, it was kind of mental for the position that I was taking and how I was trading it. I wasn't actually putting orders in. I was just kind of mentally calling it out. Hey, I'm covering some here, covering half the position at this point, knowing I wanted to take off into market hours. And hey, as it was getting pretty squirrely at 4.50, I said, okay, hey, I'm going to take off the rest there, take the little safe profits. As I wrote in my journal on this play, man, trying to short this one in pre would have just been such a nightmare. Maybe, okay, risk this little VWAP rejection, getting anywhere around 4.4. You get a nice little sell-off, comes down to just under 4.15. Okay, that's nice and decent. Not a full, awesome, beautiful trade that I would be wanting or hoping for. But then it does start to curl back up, and then it gets to the test VWAP rejection to VWAP, pulls off of there, and you can say, okay, it's fine for now. Then it does actually spike above VWAP, puts in a little play, actually breaks this little peak high, breaks above 4.5, even taps just under 4.6. How squirrely I would have been having a short position from this pre-market, knowing that, hey, there could be full sentiment for this one to be dying, but it's just about that timing factor, right? I can sit from such a position of power. I referenced that yesterday, that little phrase that just popped into my mind of being able to have a trade position, a position on from a position of power, man, there's just so much room between your enterprise and where the stock is trading now that it just becomes a question of, okay, where's the stock going from here? Where do we want to pay ourselves? So now having a position from, just sub 4.7-ish, I can let this do what it wants to do and just fake out and play while still being in the money and still having the mental capacity without having to do the training or understanding of, I know that's years down the road, months down the road of my trading career, mentally as well, to just still be in the red on trades and understand, have the clarity to see what's going on in the chart. But even as for right now, when I'm green on the trade, it just becomes so much easier to then not only cut the trade if it's starting to go sour against you, or just to have the overall glance understanding of what's going on the actual chart, and not get so caught up in, oh, well, if it goes 2 more cents that I can get it for break even, or messing around with that P&L side of it. It just becomes that position of power of having such an advanced overlook of what's happening allows for such an easier trade, intra-trade, to be a part of. And that's kind of why I do blanket some of those pre-market entries for whether short or long. If I do see a pattern that I could recognize for an intraday setup, sometimes I'll just kind of randomly, not based solely on any level 2 or time and sales in that minute candle, but just at the understanding of, hey, I think the trend is here for this one. And I do that because, hey, that kind of frees up some mental capital now that I don't have to try to force a position at a specific key moment and watch so hard to see if the actual trade's going to happen at that point, and also try to find a position at that point and see if I get filled and deal with all those little minutia there. But I can just deal in the already have the position established, see if it's working or not, establishing there, and have other charts working at the same time, looking at other charts at the same time, and juggling all those acts a lot better with that factor coming in. So yeah, another thing I wrote in my journal of, even from that position, as I'm pulling it up in pre and seeing it, okay, we got a nice, break here. Okay, the VWAP test, so now it's pulling down. We're sub 4.2. Man, it's that state of euphoria, and it can happen whether it's alongside and anything. It happen on both sides of how quickly you can go from this euphoria of, man, this was a genius trade. This is awesome. I'm going to cover at $4 here. It's going to have a nice little sell-off even before pre-market, and we're going to have a nice steak dinner coming in tonight. And then just immediately you can be at the state of, oh crap, this thing's going against me. I might not get out. I might get out for flat. This thing might just spike against me. I might have to take slippage. Of how quickly those things can happen. Great example of that you can never be so rested or just relaxed, in the sense of just, oh, let it do what it wants to do. And there's times for that, and the charts and the playbook trades will define that. But man, great reminder again that combining that, you can never just be so swayed by that state of euphoria, because, man, how quickly that can be turned against you, whether a news catalyst comes out, whether something externally changes in this stock, and or something internally, whether that's overhead or demand starts to come in from somewhere on this thing. Always have to be on your toes with that one. They do, for fundamentals too, just as reference for me again. 15 million float, American marketing software company. News catalyst yesterday after the close was their integration with some Amazon advertising stuff. Not an actual Amazon news catalyst, I believe. It was just kind of an integration with that Amazon advertising. They do have quite a few ATMs and some shelf money left to dump. But yeah, we'll see if that actually comes into effect within the next few days. And then also mentioning with this one specifically of what, mentioning that position of power. And now I know that, man, to trade this trade, I really need to be in this type of playbook trade from the previous day and use that risk profile to say, man, this thing could spike against me without me really even being able to trade it within that little dead zone window of pre-market, or just knowing that how early that pre-market move could happen. But I think the potential there for the play becomes a heck of a lot better, and that position of power is more probable, being able to sit from the king of the castle position here versus down here. And now how that leads into, okay, now if it starts going against me, I want to not let that, this is just a broad spectrum question that I'm asking myself today of, can we maintain that level position of power, but not let it slip into the type of risk where everybody else also has their risk, like the same level of risk that I would have had I still gotten a position here of risking that 4-5 level, or risking this 4-6 point there, of how many different key marks are there in the specific stock that you can obviously see that stops are going to be hit at this point. And if price goes to this level, it's going to go X amount of percentage more or pull back off of that, make it a fake out. Where are those key defined levels? Are there multiple of them? Maybe you could call that there was multiple of those on this ticker today. But never allowing that position of power or good distance from entry price to current price action be so disrupted by aligning a risk level with an obvious risk level of where everybody else has theirs as well. That's kind of souring the chip dip in a nice little trade in position of power to make it kind of a similar exit to how you would be exiting it with a terrible or more pre-market style of short entry trade on this one today. Just thoughts for pudding. I think that's another saying as well for MRIN today. Ear, man, Thinkorswim lied to me. I don't know why I believed that they had earnings after the close, and now it's saying earnings on the 11th, and I don't even know if that's the 13th. I don't even know if that's right either, but I know now this was another good one to say, just check Yahoo Finance calendar of when there's actual earnings, what companies have earnings on the day, because I do not believe this one did have earnings, and this would have been a good short, and I would have been shorting 7.3-ish. Just sub of this little VWAP move before the close that it has a little sell-off, and it did perk above. And yeah, those type of risk profile moves are definitely pretty strange, and I would have been taking a risk up to 775 before on that day itself having this thing short and carrying all those borrow share fees overnight as well through Trade Zero. But man, it would have been a nice little sit coming into today for the second day sentiment that had its little perky attempts, was hovering around VWAP close to the open, but sure enough, did have its dumpy points, and I was still mentally trading it as if I was in the trade, taking some off at 6.75 into these pulls here, trading it on that 5-minute scale, and then taking the rest off at 6.5 was my key target for, would have been, this pull that got down to here really after, kind of post-morning session, getting into that lunch afternoon session there to cover the rest of those shares. So it'll be interesting to see if it has any bounce for a third day surge style of play. Will be one to watch. IMMX was another one that I did have those 50 shares left from yesterday of that mental paper trade short. What is going on here? Thank you. So then covering, just kind of, again, randomly, I knew the longer term perspective that I wanted to have on this one for the nice little sit that I was already sitting in on this trade, a position of power that, okay, you can let this thing do what it wants to do. I still see sub $5 in sights for this trade. Just let it go and don't be so focused on the individual tick basis, and let it work. So as it was just having a little bit of rise out of that morning bell, okay, I'll give you room, do what you want to do. It's certainly not the ideal, what I want this trade to do, just have that little dying off as what we want to see on the daily perspective of this thing, just continuing these red days here, the backside after that first green day move and parabolic spike. But saying, okay, if you're breaking 5.5, I don't think you should be going there if you're going to continue to go downwards. I'm thinking there's a little bit too much juice if you're going to be breaking to the upside of 5.5 there, that I want to be a part of for a trade, and I'm going to clear you out if you do start to test there. And it gets this random volume surge that does stop me out for this mentally. And they did have a little more rise, goes up to 5.68 there in that afternoon session, but really not a lot of price action. Total dollar volume today on it was $11 million, 8,000 trades in total on the day. Nothing crazy, but just, yeah, I'll cover into that of just this big kind of random volume spike for some reason. Okay, fine, you got me. I'm still, it's an awesome profit in P&L wise for the last little 50 shares or whatever is taking it mentally. But yeah, good practice on that one again to be a part of. And then DOGZ, I was not a part of this one, not watching it really. I typed that twice. Of any of the price action today. Of course, it did have this huge, insane sell-off yesterday. Today sold off right out of the gate, but found a little double bottom range-ish, not perfectly technically, I believe, but then did start to test VWAP right to the upside of VWAP and goes into 1-2 halts here, 3 halts, 1-2 halts, and then halts again for this crazy parabolic move, but then just sideways for the rest of the afternoon. Interesting to see. After hours looks like it's putting in some amount of work here. We'll see if there's any more craziness over the weekend, over this little after hours, and anything coming into Monday for next week's trading day, but nothing really hard on it for me as of right Now, that is all that I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching and coming along on this journey with me. We will catch you guys on the next one.